Hey guys, I'm Mark Bridge, and welcome to another episode of PG Comics. Now, last episode I spoke about Brian Michael Bendis' wonderful Miles Morales Spider-Man omnibus. This one I'm going to go over to the DC side and talk about Scott Snyder and Jim Lee's Superman Unchained. This book is freaking phenomenal. It's so cinematic. Like, I almost wish this was a movie, right? Or this was like the sequel to Man of Steel. Instead of it being just in this book, because there's nothing in it. Especially if you wanted to make a Superman movie after Justice League, there's nothing in this movie that contradicts. Nothing in this book that contradicts anything that happens in the film. Whether it's Man of Steel or Justice League, so you could definitely see this as a movie, because this is new DC 52, and at the time, Superman and Wonder Woman were in a relationship, but this doesn't really touch on that as much. As a matter of fact, it doesn't even touch. Like, if you didn't know they were in a relationship, you wouldn't know it from this book. So, and of course, the only thing you would probably have to sort of touch up is the relationship with Lois and Clark, because even though it doesn't give an idea that they're not together in this book, like, they're not distant, but they're not as loving as they would be coming from BVS, where they're pretty much cohabitating together. So this doesn't give a sort of like, no, they're not together, and yes, they are together. So if this was a movie, oh my god, it's so cinematic. There's so many moments in this book that if they were translated to the screen, it would be an applaud moment. Like, oh my god, that's fucking amazing. And Jim Lee, but that's the advantage of it being a book, is that you get Jim Lee's amazing art. He's like my top 3 artists of all time. Number 3 I have is Andy Kubert, and then Jim Lee, and then of course Michael Turner. May he rest in peace. He's my number 1 artist of all time. I don't think anybody's beating Michael Turner. He's just amazing. But Jim Lee, he's like a close second. But yeah, what is this book about? Scott Snyder, he did a great, amazing job on Batman, New 52 Batman. I kind of want DC to release an omnibus of his collection, which I'm not sure why they're taking so long. They're releasing every other omnibuy, but just not Scott Snyder's collection, which is very lauded. I just don't know why they don't do it. I'm hearing that they're only going to collect his collection in absolutes, which makes no sense, because it's like, they're so expensive. They're like the price of an omnibus, an absolute, and you're just getting one storyline versus you getting his entire collection. So I don't know what they're doing, but Scott Snyder is amazing. So they originally put him on to Superman Unchained as a brand new ongoing Superman series, while you had Action Comics and Superman adjectively less Superman. Both, one was written by Greg Pak and one was written by Scott Lobdell. He was to take on a new Superman tale as well. I think late in the game decided to just make it a limited series, which had me worried when I actually picked this up. Like, okay, since they kind of late in the game changed it to a limited series, does it mean that it's a complete story? So I was on the edge of my seat while reading this, because like I wasn't sure it has an ending and how it would end, if it end anticlimactically, because maybe he had bigger plans to sort of like, this was like the beginning parts of a huge story, kind of like what he did with Batman New 52 Batman. So surprised to say, it is a complete story. Like, you don't have to read any Superman story before this or any after. It's like one standalone epic monster for Superman story. Like, I think this is one of my favorite Superman stories I ever read. Now, I'm a Marvel guy. I said it before. Like, I don't read too much DC. I've read like some of the major stuff. Like I completed Jeff Johns' run on Justice League and on Green Lantern. I'm actually gonna do a reread because I got them in omnibus collection. I'm gonna do a reread of all 3 volumes of Jeff Johns' run on Green Lantern, and I read all of his Justice League. So I'm not a huge fan of the DC stuff because it's so much of it that, but I'm very selective, and I'm slowly getting into reading some more DC stuff. Like I have the new Titans, the Mark Wolfman and George Perez omnibus collection. I have volume 1 to 3. Volume 4 comes out pretty soon, so I'm gonna start reading that, and also reread Nightfall storyline. So like I said, selective stuff here and there I'm reading for DC, but this, I gotta say, is one of the best Superman story I've ever read. Like, I'm sure a lot of people have better Superman stories to recommend. If you do, you can comment down below. Let me know which other Superman story you recommend. I did read The Death and Return of Superman, so if you're going to recommend that, I already read that. I read God Falls. I don't know if a lot of people like that story, but I did like. I love that story, The Godfall. So yeah, very selective Superman stories. Can't remember all of them on top of my head, but this one I will always remember because it's so amazing. So let's start what the story is about. So basically, it starts in 1945, the bombing of Nagasaki. Basically, you have a point of view of a boy. He's looking through binoculars and he sees a bomb being dropped, and you have the famous line, "It's a bird, it's a plane, no," and then turns out it's actually a bomb. But the bomb is not an actual bomb. It has the shell of a bomb, but then it breaks open, and you see like this humanoid creature is landing on Nagasaki and blows it up. And then it flash forwards to the present day, where Superman is trying to rescue a space shuttle that's breaking apart and it's going towards Earth. He manages to rescue the astronauts and save as many astronauts as he can. He says he missed one of them, and he's very sad about it. But it turns out the shuttle was hacked. And it was hacked by a group called Ascension. But Superman wants to know, was it Ascension or was it somebody else who did the hacking? And he goes to Lex Luthor's helicopter. Well, the helicopter was transferring him to prison. So he goes there and he wonders if Lex has anything to do with it. And basically, Lex says, "No, I have nothing to do with it." And then, moves on, whatever. Then, what else happens in it? Let me look through here. So, Superman gets, I think, like a distress signal. Oh, right. So, basically what happened is, he thinks he let one of the astronauts die, right? And Lois calls him and said, "What are you talking about? First of all, why are you burying the lead on Superman?" Because Superman hates writing about him. Clark hates writing about himself, so he's always sort of starting out with what is the issue, that these guys were saved, and everything. And then he mentions Superman, and that Superman was able to save 6 out of the 7 astronauts. And then Lois says, "Why can't you just start with Superman? You're bearing the lead. And number 2, you got it all wrong. Superman saved everyone." And he's like, "What? I don't remember saving everyone." So he goes and realizes that one of the shuttles, part of the shuttle, was taken away super fast. And so Superman tries to investigate and finds the shuttle underwater, and realizes that something else must have grabbed it. Then I'm not gonna go deep into everything that happens, but suffice it to say that his investigation leads him to General Lane's compound, where he's confronting General Lane, and he realized that there's certain things that he's hiding. Like, what is he hiding? So this story has special appearances by Batman and Wonder Woman, and so he goes to Batman to ask him, like, is there a way to clone things from him, like basically cloak things from him, I should say. Um, and Batman has this crazy suit like he built, and shows that he could cloak himself from Superman's vision. He said he built it because he wasn't sure at the time when he just met Superman if he would have to use it against him. So he's like, yeah, there's ways to cloak from you. So Superman goes to General Lane, says, hey, what's up? My investigation led me here, and then boom, this guy, the same humanoid creature you saw in the beginning of the story shows up, and like basically beats Superman, right? But he basically wants to talk to Superman. He wants to have a conversation with him, but he's trying to basically put on a front in front of General Lane to say, hey, like I'm a tough guy, but he really wants to have a conversation with Superman. So what he does is he punches Superman across the goddamn state or something like that, and then flies to him and said, now that I have your attention, can we have a conversation, a decent conversation? And then basically explains that in the 40s, scientists sort of sent a message into space, kind of like the whole Voyager situation, and then like 5 minutes later they got a response, and then they sent him as a response to sort of like teach them certain things. So basically the US have been using him as a weapon for far longer than Superman has existed on the planet. His powers works just like Superman. He absorbs the sun and sort of like basically he has the same kind of powers. Is very fast, but he's more powerful than Superman in certain aspects. So like Superman basically starts this buddy cop relationship with him. Like I love that aspect of it. Like he doesn't trust him, and of course his name is Wraith. Did I mention that his name is Wraith? He said that's what they called him, and the scientist that found him, he was like his father figure, but then he passed on, and then he sort of like stayed with the U.S. government to help them out in certain situations. Like, so while the government weren't super afraid of Superman, they knew that they had like a deterrent just in case Superman went bad. They were like, there. And General Lane is all up in the story. General Lane just basically plays like a freaking badass, right? He just doesn't give it. Like he reminds me of General Quaritch I think his name is, in Avatar, the James Cameron movie. Like definitely, like if that wasn't a movie and then this became a movie, you definitely get oh my god, I'm blanking on his name, but the same actor who plays him, you definitely get him to play this guy. But so yeah, you have the buddy cop movement with both Wraith and Superman, and they're trying to find Ascension, and what you call it? I think, was it Russia? I think like that. Some stuff happened in either Russia or was it Tokyo? But basically, Ascension is taking control of different machines and sending it after and sort of using as a way to terrorize different cities, and then Superman and Wraith both fly in to try to stop it. So yeah, I was really engaged. And then you have other stories that involve Lex escaping from prison because he's trying to prepare something. You don't know what's going on. That's another thing I was worried about, because like he would come in and out of the story like he's planning something, but I don't know if that will get resolved by the end of the story. Like whatever he's doing will get that, will resolve that. So I was like super worried about that. But that also ties into the end of the story. And then Lois has her side quest where a member of Ascension escapes the Ascension, the group, and sort of asks her to come to him because he wants to tell her the truth about Ascension. And then her plane crashes because Ascension attacks her. That member comes to rescue her because he has like the shard that looks like the Superman crystal that he used in the Fortress of Solitude. But yeah, like a bunch of stuff happens, and one of my favorite, I'm just gonna give you like different highlights of stuff that I loved. So at one point, Superman meets up with Lois after rescuing her from the Ascension, because like they basically kidnap her. he rescues her, takes her to the Fortress of Solitude. Wraith, on the other hand, sort of like gave Superman a warning, like, one day I'm gonna have to beat you. And then, Superman invites him to the fortress at one point, and at the time, Wraith betrayed him and says, all right, now I want all the weapons and all the technology you have in your fortress right now, because courtesy of the United States government, they want it all. But I think at the time they got interrupted by Ascension doing some stuff, so they had to chill that, put it on pause, and save the people. So now when Lois is there at the fortress, Sam Lane and the military, the U.S. military, are basically approaching the Fortress of Solitude and said, like, either you come out or we're breaking in and we're taking all your shit. And that was just so amazing. Batman, how he played into it is that Batman warned, I guess he sort of like informed Bruce on how to beat Wraith. So he was able to outsmart Wraith, and then Wraith didn't like that, so Wraith went to the Batcave to fight Batman. And this is part of the scene in this that would definitely be cinematic and get the crowd cheering, because like at one point Wraith goes into the Batcave and he can't find Batman. He's looking for Batman and says, well, you can't be cloaked forever. And then Batman says, activates the Batwing and sends the Batwing. You hear like the Batwing activated, and Wraith is seeing the Batwing and said, that small thing, and he was like, turns out, nope, he has a bigger Batwing, and it sends it crashing down on Wraith. But that didn't do enough damage to Wraith. He comes out, he's ready for round 2, and thinking that Bruce, that was all the best Batman could do, all of a sudden you see a bunch of headlights turn on, and it's like 100 Batmobiles coming towards him. Like that shit was just amazing. And then that was just on Bruce's side of things. Superman gets totally epic in this part of it as well, where after he sort of like tries to get Lois out of the way, so he can sort of go to war with Sam Lane and the rest of the military, like he puts on a freaking armor and goes out. And I like the line that Sam Lane says. It's like, okay, you choose now to make me like you, because he comes out so badass, like with the armor and the weapon and everything, and like it was just amazing. And Jim Lee's art just makes it look so epic. But yeah, like it has a beginning, middle, and end. It wraps up. You have the whole concept of Superman. I won't spoil it for you. Those are just some highlights. So you can you can pick it up and read it for yourself. Trust me, you will not be disappointed. It's a good buddy cop movie, like I said. It has cool moments with Batman, cool moments with Wonder Woman in it, and then Superman, of course. Superman is like the main star of this, and it manages to make Superman badass without changing his personality, because you have the brooding Batman and Superman is like the Boy Scout. So you have all the great elements of Superman being Superman in the story, like that ray of hope that he displays whenever he shows up to save people. All of that is present in the story, but at the same time, if you piss him off, he will go toe to toe and he doesn't care. And you know what? Another sort of side bit. I wonder if when Scott was writing the story, he wrote it to the score of the Man of Steel soundtrack. Because I listened to the soundtrack, and there's so many moments in it while reading this that matches well with the numbering of the soundtrack. Because the soundtrack, the way it's numbered, is not in chronological order of how the score was played in the movie. That's how Hans Zimmer does his score a lot, where it's like out of order. But there are certain things that happen in that score, like for instance, I'll give you an example. The track "Flight" that happens in the Man of Steel movie, like in the middle of it when he just gets his suit and is learning to fly. But that's towards the end of the soundtrack. Now, there's a scene that happens at the end of this where Superman goes on to save the world in a really cool way. that I won't reveal here. But that, if you play the song Flight to that to that scene, that whole scene that's going on in the book, where you have a scene where Lex Luthor is having this whole monologue while Superman is doing that. It plays so perfectly with that score that you can actually, if you read this, I recommend, if you buy this, you put the Man of Steel soundtrack on, play it, and read this, and you'll just be into another world. It was so amazing. But so let's, I'll show you, I'll be editing different pages in, but just to give you more of a look at Jim Lee's art, like this Batman right there. Holy shit, Batman. Just random stuff. Like it doesn't matter what page you turn to, you get something amazing because of Jim Lee. Like Jim Lee is just a master, and I can never, like, anything Jim Lee I'll pick up. Like, well, not anything, because I didn't like Batman and Robin, the Boy Wonder. Like, the art was amazing in that, but I didn't like the story too much, and it didn't end. That's a full problem. It didn't end, so due to that one. Oh yeah, you saw that one already. But yeah, like I said, a recommendation: Superman Unchained. It's a awesome story. I love it, and I would pick this up and read it multiple times. Not a big book, as you can see. You can always pick it up. It's like a movie. It's pretty much a movie. It's like you're taking up one of your Blu-rays and put it in. You just pick this up and read it. Like, there's nothing special on the cover. It's just a black, but it's the interiors that count. I like the cover. This was the cover of the first issue, so I love the cover. But yeah, so that wraps it up for the second episode of PG Comics. I did Marvel first, and I did DC second. I'm not sure if I'm gonna go back to Marvel. I might just continue with DC or read something else. I know what I want to do is I want to do Battle Angel Alita read up to the movie. I want to reread that saga because I didn't read it. I haven't read it in a long time, so I gotta sort of like refresh my memory on it. So I'm gonna do a reread on that and sort of do like a video on those as it leads up to the film. So yeah, lots of stuff to read, lots of stuff to talk about, and I love talking about it to you guys. I'm doing comics, I'm doing video games, I'm doing movies. I just love all that stuff, so I can't pigeonhole myself into just one genre. So hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, and hit that notification so you can know when I drop videos. Leave me a comment down below. Let me know what you think. What can I do to improve? And sort of recommend stories. If you want to recommend stories that I should read, I'll take your recommendation, read them, and see if I like them or not. It's all about what you guys think. So, trying to get to that 1,000 subscribers. So, join me on that road. So, until next time, folks, peace.